Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Maryland 7th Congressional District Telephone Town Hall, hosted by Congressman Kweisi Mfume. My name is Robin, and I'll be moderating the call this evening. Congressman Mfume is convening this evening's town hall to have a two-way discussion with you about what is happening in Washington, D.C., and how it affects you and our neighbors. This is a live, interactive forum, so your questions and your comments are absolutely critical part of the dialogue to take place over the next 2 hours. So we encourage and welcome you to chime in. As a quick housekeeping reminder, if you are on the telephone and you want to ask a question, please press *3 on your telephone keypad. You'll be connected to a member of our staff, and they will ask you for your name and where you're calling from and your question. The next time you hear your name, you will be live on the call with the congressman. If you are joining us online, please type your question below the streaming player, and your question will be submitted for our queue. Again, that's *3 to ask a question, and please enter your question if you are live streaming under the live streaming player. You can also press *6 to subscribe to our newsletter for updates on this topic and other topics that the Congressman wants to share with you. Congressman Mfume is pleased to be joined by two very special guests this evening. Each has a set of experiences and perspectives that I am sure you will appreciate. Congressman's special guests are Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown and National President of the American Federation of Government Employees, Everett Kelley. Attorney General Brown previously represented Maryland's 4th Congressional District, served as Maryland's Lieutenant Governor, and held various leadership positions in the Maryland House of Delegates. National President Kelley leads the largest labor union representing federal government employees, the American Federation of Government Employees, and he began his first term of service in February 2020 and has been an AFGE member since 1981. Now, without further delay, I present you, our host for this evening, Congressman Kweisi Mfume. Please, Congressman, your opening remarks. The floor is yours, sir. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks for setting the tone. I'm particularly honored to have the two guests you spoke about. I'm going to say something more about both of them in just a moment because they have given up their time this evening willingly because they recognize what the stakes are here and how we have to find a way to resist much of what we have seen taking place in the last 3 to 4 weeks here in the country that we all love and in the state that most of us who are on this call reside in. I can't begin to tell you how disturbing it has been for me personally and professionally to watch how we are inching toward a constitutional crisis because we have, unfortunately, a president who has decided, in my opinion, to ignore the rule of law and to impose harsh decisions on persons, oftentimes without due process at all. It has wreaked havoc on families, on individuals, and on communities. And it has wreaked that havoc all across the nation. A great deal of that attention has been on federal employees. And as you know, 80% of all federal employees live outside of the state of Maryland. So this is a national calamity. And I want to say a few things as I begin to introduce this. But most of all, I want to thank all of you who've taken time this evening on a Friday where you could be doing whatever and you are here with us. Not because we have as they used to say, a silver bullet or a golden answer or a reason to assure all of you that things will be better tomorrow morning when you wake up, because they will not. But more than anything, I want to have a conversation with you. I want you to talk to me as you would talk to me if you saw me at the gas station or the supermarket or anywhere else. And I want others to hear you because there's so many who are sharing the same stories and who are feeling the same kind of pain and disillusionment. I do know that there may be callers that want to talk about something other than what's been happening with the federal government. We're well aware of the problem here with BG&E and the rate increases that are affecting people here in the central Maryland area. And if that's what you want to talk about, fine. I'm here with you and I'm here for you. And I would hope that you have a sense of involvement by participating like this. So we're going to do this again and again and again as we move through the year. I do want to thank some organizations who are not here and not present unless they are on the call for driving the message about this town hall meeting, for making sure that people knew that there would be a way at least to interact with both the state attorney general and with the president of AFGE, and of course to interact with me and groups that have been assisting with many of the court challenges that have been taking place as a result of the twisted, cruel, and in my opinion, evil practices of this DOGE department, which technically does not exist. Congress did not create it. As we all know, it's a manifestation of Donald Trump, and it is an illusion in his mind as he thinks it's the cure-all, end-all, be-all. So let me just thank Move On for helping to create around the country a sense of awareness through your Move On newsletter and website and through your many members. I want to thank also the group Indivisible, which has been at the forefront of a lot of the organizing efforts that we've seen around the country. I want to thank the ACLU, who continually have offered and are providing legal support to challenge many of these things. The National Treasury Employees Union, who many of us in the Maryland delegation, myself, Senator Van Hollen, Senator also Brooks, Congressman Olszewski, Congressman Elfrich, and Congressman Raskin and Hoyer met with this past week. I need to thank also the NAACP Legal Defense Fund for helping us in the courts and for doing something that we desperately need, and that is to add legal might to this fight and to do it in a very clear and concise way. The Leadership Conference on Civil Rights, Democracy Now! Was also a part of that meeting that I talked about, and so many others who've been on the phone, calling your friends, calling your neighbors, and encouraging each other to stand up, stand back, but never to stand down in the face of this kind of foolishness. We all know that when you take a meat cleaver instead of a scalpel to try to root out waste, fraud, and abuse, what you do is you make the patient worse. And I'm interested to know, because for most of us, we too want to do away with waste, fraud, and abuse in our government. We want to do it strategically, surgically, and we want to do it so that we can validate whatever results we are getting. I've spent the last 2.5 years as the ranking member on the Committee of Government Operations on the Oversight Committee. And on that subcommittee, for 2 years, we have been doing just what Elon Musk claims that he could do in 30 or 40 days. It's a tough task because it's a big government. But when you take a hammer to try to solve a problem, all you're going to create is broken glass, broken concrete, broken homes, and broken hearts. And that's what we have seen. So we know that federal employees, more than anybody else, are and have been extremely important to making sure that this government operates. These are people who are Democrats and Republicans and independents. They live in big cities. They live in rural America. They live on the East Coast, the West Coast, in the heartland. They put on their clothes every day to go do a job, nonpartisan job for the American public and for the country that they love. So you can imagine, particularly here in this area where Maryland has more federal employees than any other state, why this pain is so deep and so severe, and why we are determined to find a way, some kind of way, to get us out of this morass. We know that if this is not stopped, there will be longer TSA lines. There will be longer call times at Social Security and all the other places where we look for and require the ability to talk to a human being to help us answer our questions and to move us out of the situation we're in. We know that the agencies that exist throughout the federal government only exist as efficiently as they do because you've got a great federal workforce working for them. And whether it's Social Security disability claims, which now may take forever to be responded to once you continue to reduce force as they've done just today by consolidating, and this was a decision of the acting person there, to consolidate 4 more of the national regions into one area to fire, and that's the best word that I can use, long-term administrators who are key to several different aspects of that Social Security operation. It doesn't make sense. The IRS has found itself vulnerable. It's in many respects because this president never liked the IRS, never wanted the IRS to go after wealthy individuals. And every time we've tried to add money to their budget to do that, there's been a big fight and a way to cut it back. This time, there is no fight because it was an executive order. So you get around the fight by just saying, get rid of 7,000 or 8,000 people. And that just is not the way it works. Medical research, particularly in Maryland at Johns Hopkins, University of Maryland, these institutions that are conducting clinical trials have now find themselves in a situation where those trials are suspended or in real jeopardy. So many life-saving advances are on hold. And so without going much further into this, at some point I do want to talk about Project 2025, because it really became more than a notion for most of us who early last year began ringing the alarm bell about this. I do want to, again, just say a couple of things for the persons who may have just tuned in. I want to say a few more words about both of our special guests. I'm going to yield to both of them afterwards, and they're going to take some time to talk about their perspective and where they are. And after that, we're going to hear from you. So the bulk of this town hall will be what you have to say and not necessarily what we have to say unless we're saying something in response to it. And it's an opportunity, as I said, to be able to know that you are talking to people, so many people, who for one reason or another feel your pain, understand the situation, and in many instances are in the same situation looking for help. So again, we're joined by Attorney General Anthony G. Brown, who is Maryland's 47th Attorney General. Prior to becoming Attorney General, Anthony Brown represented the 4th Congressional District from 2017 to 2023 as a member of Congress. He served as Lieutenant Governor here in the state of Maryland from 2007 to 2015, and served in the Maryland House of Delegates from 1999 to 2007. Since taking office, Attorney Brown has continued his longstanding commitment to equity by establishing the Office of Equity, Policy, and Engagement, a first for the Attorney General's office, to focus on strategies, initiatives, policies, and practices that will promote equity and fairness in Maryland's civil, criminal, and administrative justice systems. He has, in his own way, been a trailblazer and a real staunch fighter on behalf of people who need assistance and who believe that the law is one way of providing that. He will say this on his own, I'm sure, has joined with attorney generals from around the country in filing lawsuits against the actions that we have seen taking place by this administration. There are 75 or so lawsuits that have been filed. 14 of those, as I understand, we've got some kind of injunctive relief. There's a temporary restraining order, and then there was one that we lost altogether. But it's the work of Attorney General Brown and other attorney generals around the country that is significant in that regard. And I would be remiss, again, if I did not take a moment to say that. Our second guest is Everett Kelley, who is the national president of the American Federation of Government Employees. It is the largest union representing federal and DC government employees. Everett began his first term of service in 2020. He was elected to another one at the 42nd convention. He's been a member of AFGE since 1981, has worked his way through the ranks to become national president, is an Army veteran, a student of theology, and his unyielding commitment to social justice, civil rights, and workers' rights is legendary. Everett was awarded the AFL-CIO's Eyes on the Prize Award and the Dr. Martin Luther King's Humanitarian and Civil Service Award just a couple of years back. So that's who's with us tonight. Again, my thanks to both of them for, on short notice, taking time to say, I want to talk, I want to hear from the people in the 7th Congressional District and throughout the Central Maryland area, and they are both here. So let me, without any other comment here, yield to Attorney General Brown for whatever comments and remarks he would like to make. And then after that, we will yield to President Kelley for the same. Anthony?
Thank you very much, Congressman Mfume, and thanks for that kind introduction. I've had the privilege, although I certainly wasn't born into privilege or raised in privilege, but I've had the privilege of serving 40 years in public service. And I must say that some of the most rewarding years was working by your side when we served together on Capitol Hill. And I thank you for your continued service representing the 7th Congressional District. I want to thank my friend and an extraordinary labor leader, our AFGE National President, Kelley. I've had a wonderful relationship with AFGE and its members, both during my time in Congress and before and since. So I'm grateful to be here this evening in this teletown hall in Central Maryland, an opportunity to discuss some of the critical issues that we face in Maryland. And frankly, we're experiencing this across the nation. And, you know, Congressman, you mentioned things like rising utility bills. Families are facing increasing prices at the grocery store, job insecurity for many, and particularly nowadays for federal workers. We have a state economy that is growing slower than our neighbors, and the divisiveness that we experience in politics and through our society is often crippling. So now, on top of those challenges, and I think why you've convened us this evening, Congressman, is to discuss what we are being confronted by with the policies of the Trump administration that further strain our communities. So I just want to take just a little bit of time to highlight a few things that we're doing in the Office of the Attorney General on behalf of the people of Maryland. And then I look forward to, after hearing from President Kelley, being able to respond and listen to your constituents about their concerns and issues. So you should know that, since January 20th, when the president was elected, I've worked alongside my fellow AGs around the country. We filed 7 significant actions against the federal government. Congressman Mfume mentioned the total number of lawsuits, and Kweisi, I checked that number today on the website. There are a number of them that are tracking federal lawsuits. It now is over 100 lawsuits that have been filed against the Trump administration to date. And they're filed by labor organizations, by individuals, by civil society organizations like ACLU, Democracy Forward, and a number of other organizations. So we, as Attorneys General, are on the front line, and thankfully we're not the only ones keeping sentinel on that front line. So during the first week in office, President Trump issued an executive order that froze nearly all federal funding, which threatened programs essential to our communities, programs like WIC, provides nutrition assistance to pregnant parents and infants, Head Start, which supports preschool and family services for low-income children, and the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program. All of those are in jeopardy and would impact all families and hit our most vulnerable families hardest. So as a result, I joined a coalition of 22 states, and we filed a lawsuit. Thankfully, a federal judge in Rhode Island issued a temporary restraining order, halting the freeze and ensuring that these critical programs would continue. And even to this day, the Trump administration looks for ways to circumvent that order, but we are on watch. 2 weeks ago, the administration proposed, and you mentioned this, Congressman Mfume, a $4 billion cut to the National Institutes of Health, and which threatened to undermine groundbreaking medical research. And that means a lot of jobs in Maryland and a lot of work that we are engaged in Maryland because we are a global leader in medical research. Think Johns Hopkins University, University of Baltimore, that manage this vital research. So to protect those programs, I filed a lawsuit, again, joined by 22 other states' attorneys general, to preserve that funding. And we got a temporary restraining order in that case as well. So while we're enjoying some wins, we've got a long way to go to ensure victory on behalf of the people of Maryland and this country. Perhaps one of the most concerning developments came when the Trump administration granted Elon Musk and his so-called DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, and it's everything but efficient, as Congressman Mfume described. And that gave Elon Musk access to the Treasury Department Central Payment System. And think for a moment. This central payment system funnels about $7 trillion a year to states and people across this country. In Maryland alone, we get about $11 billion through this system. Marylanders as individuals were almost $50 billion. And on top of the money, there's also a lot of personal information about taxes and someone's social security number, other personal data that's in the system. So working with a number of attorneys general, we blocked this action, and the court held that this unprecedented move is, in fact, unconstitutional. Now, we only received a temporary restraining order, and we are now, and in fact, actually did secure a preliminary injunction. That's one step closer to victory, but we still have a long way to go. And then the final area that I want to speak to is the Trump administration's cruelty, disrespect, and disregard for our federal workers, which has resulted in the firing of hundreds, if not thousands, of federal workers in Maryland. These federal employees who work in agencies, whether it's the Department of Justice, Department of Labor, the Environmental Protection Agency, they've either been terminated or being terminated or threatened with termination, leaving many Maryland families without their livelihoods. And just yesterday, a federal judge in California blocked the firing of federal probationary workers, and I want to thank our friends in labor for their efforts in bringing those suits. So there's certainly more to talk about. I'd like to stop here, if that's okay, Congressman Mfume, yield to President Kelley, and then certainly be on standby to answer any questions. And I want folks to know that the Maryland Office of Attorney General, we will continue to be on the front lines defending the rights and well-being of all Marylanders.
Great. Attorney General Brown, thank you very, very much. We are going to quickly go to President Kelley for his comments. I do have to say, however, the irony in all of this is that what you do and what lawyers across the country are doing are really helping to save democracy, because we never thought we'd get to the day where the third branch of government, the courts, would have to step in such a way. But thank God that they are, and thank God that we're winning some of these lawsuits to prevent these draconian moves by Donald Trump and this Department of Government evil. Mr. Kelley, thank you again. Thank you for your work with the American Federation of Government Employees. As I said in the opening remarks, we hold you in high regard. And there's so many of your union members that are directly affected by what's happening. So please take the floor and proceed as you wish.
Well, thank you, Congressman Mfume, and thank you for convening this meeting to discuss Trump's war against the civil service. To Attorney General Anthony Brown, thank you for all the support that you've given to federal employees. You've always been a friend. Thanks to any other dignitary that might be on this call tonight. Now, you don't need AFGE to tell you that the situation facing federal workers in Baltimore and everywhere is bleak. In just 10 days, the past 10 days, Trump and his DOGE have moved to fire tens of thousands of probationary employees, falsely claiming that their performance was poor. Fortunately, AFGE's legal team succeeded last night in persuading a federal judge to declare these firings to be illegal. The Social Security Administration has indicated it will lay off at least 7,000 people from its workforce of 60,000 and may even try to reduce its workforce by as much as 50%. Many of the people here tonight work at Social Security and know how this would hurt the 72.5 million beneficiaries of all ages that we proudly serve. There's even a plan on the way to move any number of federal agency headquarters to states far outside the Washington, D.C. and Baltimore region. And just 14 days from tonight, virtually every federal agency will run out of money to pay its employees unless Congress and President Trump agrees on a budget. Now, I'm often asked what we think about a government shutdown. To that I say, what we are living through right now is worse than any shutdown. I've experienced several. What we're seeing is an illegal permanent shutdown of many agencies, from USAID to the Department of Ed to EPA and many others. And over the next few weeks, everything will be at stake. Our jobs, of course, but also our pay and our benefits, like FERS and health insurance. And last but certainly not least, our basic rights to unionize and negotiate collective bargaining agreements. Now, the good news is that we know that Representative Mfume has our back. Now, let me offer a few on the path ahead. Now, as Representative Mfume knows, AFGE has filed several lawsuits challenging the administration's attack on the civil service. We had a few successes in federal court, like last night's temporary restraining order blocking for now OPM's effort to fire probationary employees. FGE is also challenging in court Trump's executive order to reinstate his Schedule F plan that will politicize the civil service, grant DOJ access to the confidential personnel information of every American, destroy USAID, and grant DOJ access to Treasury payment system. Now, it will be months before many of these cases are finally decided, but FGE is hopeful that we will prevail in the end. But we also must be realistic, and we want to be, as well. The bottom line is the law, that's made, it's made it hard for federal employees to sue the government. This means that we can't count on the courts to save us. Courts may delay Trump, but they will not stop him, especially since the Supreme Court is stacked with members who would likely side with Trump. Though we know Representative Mfume's party doesn't allow any control any branch of government, the only real hope for saving the civil service and thereby saving the country is an act of Congress. Now, we know the first opportunity that comes is going to be on March 14th when the government funding expires. AFGE knows that March 14th, Representative Mfume will stand with us, stand with his constituents, and we must not, support any budget. And I'm saying this loud and clear, and hopefully everybody understands. But we must not support any budget that allows Trump and Musk to continue demolishing the government. We must stand firm. Our members are strong-willed, patriotic employees. They live by the time-honored words attributed to Constantine, the first Christian emperor of Rome, and later quoted by Franklin D. Roosevelt. He says, "I'd rather die standing up than live on my knees." So I want to just echo that tonight. And I want everybody to just let that sink in, because it's time for all of us to stand up. With that, Congressman, I thank you for this opportunity. I'm here in the event that someone might have a question, but thank you for this time.
Well, thank you very much, President Kelley, and thank you for being plain spoken, because that's what's required here more than anything else. When you look at what's going on, people want to be talked to and not talked at. And that's why I've always appreciated the work of the American Federation of Government Employees and the example that you set by the simple eloquence of your own example. We are just about at the 30-minute mark. The last 2/3 of this town hall will belong to the people who've taken time to call in. So we've got about 90 more minutes set aside for that, but I wanted to make sure we use the first 30 minutes so that you get a sense of the people who are joining us and a sense of their passion and their commitment. And thank you for also putting up with my small talk. I just feel so very strongly about this that, like you, I get angry at the notion of it. I do want to say, however, there is so much pain from people who have mortgages to pay, medical bills to pay, car notes, families to feed, when they get a call out of the blue, not just asking, what did you do last week, but the other call that says, we no longer need you. And again, I want to say this because I don't know that it's been said often enough. Elon Musk and Donald Trump have taken a meat cleaver to cut out what they consider to be waste, fraud, and abuse. Not a scalpel where it's surgical, where you make sure that what you're cutting out is in fact something that should go, that would make the government better. And so this is not any consolation of those families who are hurting, or those who are uncertain, by the way, about what's going to happen next with them. President Kelley talked about the fact that we're going to be voting on a budget soon. Well, 2 days ago, we voted on the framework of that budget. And unfortunately, because the Republican Party controls the House, that vote carried by 2 votes. What it did was to set up the structure of what the budget would look like. It's like if you're building a house, you got to put up the walls and the flooring and the roof before you move anything in. Well, this is constructed in such a way that it's going to require almost $800 billion worth of cuts. And where do they cut? They're going to go after Medicaid. They're going to go after Medicare. There will be an attempt also to visit Social Security benefits. And so many of my colleagues on the floor debating me yesterday said, well, we never said we're going to do that. In fact, you don't see that anywhere in the bill. No, you don't, because this is not the funding package. This is the package that sets up the parameters of what that bill will look like. And so they built a very small, tight house with too much furniture to move in. And so there's going to be efforts, trust me, to make cuts that are, again, draconian. And so please pay attention to that. We're going to do as best we can to make sure that everybody knows as we go through that process where, in fact, we are. So thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. As I said, we've got about 90 minutes here to have some dialogue and discussion. Most of all, a conversation about how you feel, what you expect, what you think about, what challenges you the most, and what you believe your government ought to be doing. So I don't know, I'm going to yield to the operators now that are running the systems on this teletown hall, so that you might start bringing persons in. If you're ready to go, we're ready to go.
Yes, sir. Thank you so very much, Congressman Mfume. I just want to remind our listeners, if you would like to ask a question, please press *3 on your telephone keypad now or at any time during this call. I'm going to open up the lines. Congressman, your first caller is Vanessa from Pikesville. Vanessa, you are live on the call with the Congressman. Please go ahead and ask your question, Vanessa.
Vanessa, are you there?
You are live.
Hello, Vanessa.
Congressman, I'm going to go ahead and ask Vanessa's question on her behalf. Vanessa asks, why is Elon Musk being allowed to send emails to federal employees questioning what they are doing at work and threatening their employment? Why are we allowing them to fire federal employees? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I don't know that we're willingly allowing them to do anything right now. Everything that's happening is happening without a will, without permission, with the authority of the President of the United States, and unfortunately with the backing in 1 or 2 instances of the courts that says, as the president, he has a right to do this, that, and the other in terms of the federal workforce. But getting back to your other question about Elon Musk, he has no such power. He is not a designated federal employee. There is no department called DOGE. Only the departments that exist are the ones that are created by Congress. So this is an effort for an unelected billionaire. In fact, nobody in the entire world has more money than Elon Musk. And Mr. Musk spent $280 million in the last election cycle last fall to give to Donald Trump and to donate to Republicans so that they would, in fact, find a way to win the House. So it's happening. We are upset like you are, but there is no authority for him to do it, which is why the Attorney General Brown, and so many others have filed these lawsuits. As you heard earlier, we're over 100 now. I said 75 to begin with, but we're over 100. There have been a number of injunctions put in place to stop some of this. There will be more temporary restraining orders, you can believe it, that will stop it. The problem is, in between now and then, meaning now and when we get another set of injunctive reliefs, damage has been done. This man has gone in and gotten the records and had access to the records at the Department of the Treasury, at Social Security, and so many other agencies. This is private information that does not belong to anybody other than the duly appointed persons who direct an agency and to the American public. So it is not just write me a note and tell me what you did last week. He's got his band of 22-year-olds that have gone in, and this is my own personal belief. I can't prove this. I think they've downstreamed much information, so much information on servers that we might even be too late in stopping that. So it's not that we're allowing him. I mean, we've got a society of laws and rules. And in instances like this, we've got to make sure that in order for them to be obeyed, we have to obey them to some extent, which is why Attorney General Brown and others are fighting in the courts in a way that the Congress can't do. I signed on to an amicus brief today, which is a friend of the court brief, and I will be doing more of that. But members of Congress have been prevented from bringing lawsuits of our own because the judges in each of these cases have ruled that we don't have standing, meaning we don't have a personal kind of vested interest in it other than the role we play as representatives. But I hear you, Vanessa, loud and clear, and I didn't mean to ramble, but we're all upset about what you see.
Thank you so very much, Congressman. Our next question was submitted online by Jeremy of Catonsville. Jeremy says, what is being done? What concrete steps to put an end to the DOGE chaos machine sending panic through federal workers, sir?
Well, I hope I answered some of that, and I'm going to ask the Attorney General to step back in and Everett Kelley. We are doing everything that we humanly can do, in addition to mass protests around the country and here in Maryland. And I want to thank, by the way, many of you who've joined me out on these lines of protest in front of federal buildings, standing with government employees, making the case that we will not give up. We will continue to resist. That's very, very important. It may seem like it's a relic of the civil rights era, but we've got to get the attention of people. And that's the quickest way to do that, because so many people are hurting and they want to know what can they do. Short of that, it's important for us to hold our communities together while this works its way out or forces its way to be correct again. And that's why it's important in communities, I think, to have listening sessions and talking sessions. This is really the fight of our lives, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not trying to scare anybody at all. I'm just telling you that we will lose the democracy that we have if we are not careful. And there are many people who are already wondering aloud whether or not there will be elections in 20 months for the United States Congress and for 1/3 of the Senate. Donald Trump has already indicated that he's interested in another term, even though constitutionally he can't do that. But he knows he's got a Supreme Court that, for the most part, will support whatever he has to do. There are Republican members of the Congress that don't hear from people at all that are aggrieved and upset, because sometimes those people say, well, they're not going to listen to me. It's no sense in me writing a letter or going to their office or anything else. But it does make sense, and it is effective. And I just can't give some of my colleagues a free ride. I mean, they stood up yesterday and voted for this nonsensical budget framework, which, as I said before, is going to result in major cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, probably Social Security, other entitlement programs. And, I see them, and I'll see them on the floor again Monday, and they'll just look at me and say, how's it going? Well, it's not going good at all. But because they're not necessarily always feeling the heat, they don't feel that they have to do anything. Now, just recently over the weekend, there have been a couple of town halls, as some of you seen, where that was not the case, where people just said, I'm going to take it upon myself to make sure that I'm represented so that the people who do represent me won't feel like they're alone. Let's go to the next one.
Absolutely, sir. Our next caller is Paula from Baltimore City. Paula, you are live on the call with the Congressman. Please go ahead and ask your question, Paula.
Well, thank you, Senator, for doing this. I think it's really needed, and you have answered, I guess, a couple questions I was going to ask, but I'm going to go. I'm in my 70s, and I cannot
take your time, Paula. Take your time.
express how scared all of this is. And people don't we knew before what was going to happen. It's no surprise, but now that it's here, it's shocking, especially with the things that happened in the White House today. I'm not going to go there. That's very scary. All that's very scary to me. But and my hearts go out to all the workers out there, the people, the poor people that I'm middle class, and we will be okay, I think. Well, I don't know if we lose Social Security, that could be disastrous. But I do. My heart goes out because I just don't understand how they can be so heartless to do this to the American people. I mean, people are going to lose their health insurance. How are people to get health care? And lose Medicare, Medicaid. It's very scary. Nursing home people that are on Medicare. What is going to happen? It's all just.
Well, we're gonna do everything that we can to make sure it doesn't happen. And I want us all not to give in to a defeatist attitude, because I've been in battles like this over the last 5 decades, and I've seen where people are victorious because they do stand up and they do fight back. And it's just important to believe that most people in this country have good hearts and that most people in this country want to do the right thing. It's just that those are not the ones that are in control of things right now. So we've got to remind each other that we are part of a larger majority, that we will fight back, and that we will stand proud. Now, let me just say this, because I do want to get both of our guests to weigh in again. This Department of Government evil, which is what I have been calling it all along, is a concoction of Elon Musk without any calculation about what the pain, the hurt, the suffering will be, and the levels of that pain, hurt, and suffering. Because when you're the richest man in the world, you don't worry about things like money. And Donald Trump, in my opinion, motivated by a desire to get back at Democrats or anybody he doesn't like, is engineering this show, totally engineering it, and giving away authority to our government to somebody who's not elected at all. Mr. Trump doesn't like me, and that's okay. I don't like what he's doing, so I keep talking about it, standing up about it, and pushing back against it. And as I've said over and over again, whether it's been outside of some of these buildings and protests and demonstrations, or just standing up on the floor of the Congress, it's a smokescreen. Trust me. As I said before, I'm the ranking member on the Federal Government Operations Subcommittee. We've been looking at waste, fraud, and abuse for 2.5, 3 years. We have identified it. Nobody from DOJ just says, where is it? We've already identified it. And the people who were in charge of making sure that the law is not broken, the inspector generals, were all fired by Donald Trump the day that this started. So you got no watchdog there. And if we're really serious about waste, fraud, and abuse, well, guess what? The Pentagon has a budget of $841 billion per year. $841 billion. I say that because they are the only government agency that has failed 7 straight audits. Now, in order to fail 7 straight audits, you really got to try, or you really have to be pretty bad. And so there's waste, fraud, and abuse, which should have been the start of this DOGE effort, but they don't want to go there for a number of different reasons. So let me get off of my little soapbox. Attorney General Brown and President Kelley, please jump in if you would.
Yeah, if you don't
No, go
mind,
ahead.
Congressman, President Kelley, I'll yield to you if you'd like.
Okay. Well, I want to go back to the question of what can we do, right? I think there is a lot that can be done. There is so much, and only so much, that at this point the Congress, the Democratic Congress can do. There is only so much that we can do in court, but there is a whole lot that individually we can do to apply the necessary pressure upon those congressional personnel that seemingly don't care about the American people. And we have to make those phone calls. We have to continue to educate people in our communities, in our church, in mosque, at the synagogue, wherever, to educate them as to what it is that federal employees do. Because they want to imply that federal employees are lazy and don't do any work. But, and I shared this a few days ago, and I'm going to share this again. Normally, that's because what the federal employee does for the American people oftentimes are invisible, because nobody notices when, the food are inspected, when the food is inspected and, we eat healthy food. Nobody notices when Social Security checks arrive on time. Nobody notices when the veterans are getting the care that he or she needs. Nobody notices when the skies that we fly in, are safe. Nobody notices. So therefore, the federal employees are very successful in performing their duties. And so what we have to do is begin to educate people on the reality of what federal employees do every single day. The warfighters on the battlefield, they have the equipment. They have the equipment that they need that does not malfunction. These are the things that federal employees do, and I proudly represent them. They are patriotic employees, and they're faced with all of this stress. They're faced with all of this turmoil, and so what we have to do is continue to educate the community. We have to make the phone calls to the Congress, and again, you don't have to worry about and spend your time talking to Congressman Mfume, because he got our back. It's those Republican congressmen that don't, and that's where we're going to have to spend time, infiltrating their town halls and filling up their offices and sending emails and letters, letters to the editor, these type of things, so that the community begin to understand what America is facing. So thank
Attorney
you.
General,
We just wanted to share that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also would like to try to address Jeremy's question, what is being done to end DOGE. And, there is a good news story happening here. And again, Attorney General filed a lawsuit and said Elon Musk, he is acting like a senior government official, an appointed official, and he has attempted to commandeer with his merry band of followers the central payment system of the United States Treasury. Up to this point, only a handful of people have access to that. These are career federal government employees. They're not political appointees. They're career employees with the knowledge, the skill, the sensitivity, and the understanding about what they're working with. A lot of money and a lot of sensitive information. And we were successful. We demonstrated to the judge the harm of cutting off payments to individuals, veterans benefits, tax refunds, Medicaid payments, and the court heard us. Now again, I understand it's a district court and there's a ways to go, and not every court has been friendly in these types of matters. But we did get a preliminary injunction. The court said stop. So Elon Musk is no longer in that central payment system. Now, having said that, we were less successful so far. The battle isn't over. When we made the case to the court that Elon Musk is acting like, whether it's a head of agency, a cabinet secretary. I mean, we all see him on TV. He's standing over the right shoulder of the president behind the Resolute desk, giving the president literally directions on how to run government. And that's got a high-ranking officer. I don't know who is. On that one, however, we have not yet been successful. The court didn't throw out the case. The court said, I need to hear more. You need to develop it a little bit more. So we're working that issue. So the question is, what is being done? We're working that issue to demonstrate that Elon Musk is, in fact, a senior federal official. He was not confirmed by the U.S. Senate, and therefore he's acting without true authority and true power. And then we're going to ask for relief. Get him out of the Oval Office. Get him out of sending emails through OPM to federal government employees, asking them to send emails. What did you do? What are the 5 things you did in the last week? And as President Kelley and Congressman Mfume mentioned, that instills fear throughout the federal workforce. So those are some of the things we're doing, some partial successes, some delayed successes, but those are some of the things that we're doing.
Thank you, Attorney
Thank you so
General.
much, gentlemen. Go right ahead, sir.
No, we can go to the next participant. I want to thank Vanessa, Jeremy, and Paula thus far. And if you got another person in the queue, by all means, place them.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. So I just want to remind our listeners, please, if you have a question, please press *3 on your telephone keypad now or at any time during the call. Our next question comes from Eric of Baltimore City. Eric, you are live on the call. The floor is yours. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Hey, thank you so much. And good evening to you, Mr. Congressman, Mr. Attorney General, Mr. President. Appreciate you setting up this town hall meeting tonight. And very, very briefly before I begin, I just want to say that I participated in the last town hall meeting that was held by Senator Alston Brooks and Senator Van Hollen. And I would like to commend you for setting out the robocall that informed me about the night's meeting, because I just found out about the other meeting last minute. So I hope this is successful. I hope it's a good turnout, and if so, I would please ask you to encourage your colleagues to do the same thing, to be proactive as you have been tonight in making those calls and informing us of when these town halls are being held. With that said, my question, if you can call it as much, I mean, I, like you and everybody that's participating tonight, it's just a constant deluge every day, and I have so many questions, but so little time. I guess I would ask that, given today's sort of S show in the Oval Office between the president and President Zelensky, I guess what I would like is maybe just a brief comment on what we witnessed today. If you congressmen and the other 2 participants. And lastly, to wrap that up, about myself, I'm a veteran and I'm a former federal worker, and I just want to say that I stand ready to assist in any way possible. I'm not going to be a bystander to what's going on. I'm itching to get in the fight, if you will. I'll contact you through email, and I'm just really looking to be guided throughout these next 4 years. So I'm ready to act. I'm ready to help do what I can. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Thank you very much for also bringing into the discussion what took place today at the White House, which in all my many years, I have never, ever, ever witnessed anything like that. And it made me feel ashamed as an American that in the White House, of all places, the President of the United States and the Vice President would berate, belittle, disparage, and humiliate one of our allies in the person of President Zelensky of Ukraine. I had to go back and listen to the video on that a couple of times because I said, well, maybe I missed something, but I don't think I did. It was hurtful. And as I said before, it was just embarrassing and shameful as an American. In 1986, some people who know me know this story, that in 1986, I got elected for the first time to the United States Congress. And Ronald Reagan was president. Reagan called our freshman class down to the White House for a little chummy meeting, get to know you. I'm the president. You just got here, so let me tell you what's going on. And it was a good meeting, very cordial. It was myself, Ben Cardin from Maryland, who had just got elected to Congress, Nancy Pelosi, John Lewis, Joe Kennedy, and a few others as a part of that class. We got there. Long story short, someone said, well, Mr. President, how do you feel about foreign relations, and how are we going to contain what was then known as the Soviet Union? And he said, I can only tell you this one thing, whether you are a Democrat or Republican or an independent. For me and for my predecessors, the rule of law has been all politics stop at the water's edge. And yet we are seeing a situation now where that has been breached. And we have instead injected politics at the water's edge. And Zelensky is not our enemy, nor are the people of the Ukraine. We may not agree with him or them, but they are not our enemy. Our enemy is still President Putin. And so for the president and vice president, in a very disrespectful manner, to just berate that man in front of the entire world, it's something that we have always come to expect more out of our presidents, particularly in terms of diplomacy and stateliness. All that's out of the window now. This is a whole brand new ballgame. So I don't want to say any more, Eric, except that it was embarrassing. And thank you, by the way, for your service to our country as a veteran and for your work as a federal employee. We can go to the next caller.
Thank you, Congressman. Our next caller is Sally from Baltimore. Sally, you're live on the call with the Congressman. Please go ahead and ask your question, Sally. Sally, you're live on the call. Please go ahead.
Am I there?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Hello? Hello?
Hi there.
I'd like to thank Congressman Kweisi for having this meeting, and I would like to thank Attorney General Brown for relieving some of my anxiety. But my question is, on Social Security, I am 72 years old, and I have paid into that since I was 16. And I don't understand why that is considered an entitlement program, or Medicare, which I pay every month into. How are these programs? I'm paying for these and paid into them. How are these entitlement? Can someone enlighten me?
Well, I'll take a quick stab, and maybe either or both of my guests might. The word entitlement comes from the fact that if you participate in them, you are entitled to take benefits out of them. And there is a cost for running Social Security, obviously, just like anything else. But above and beyond that, when the bill was signed into law that created the Social Security Administration and Social Security as we knew it, it was referred to as an entitlement program, that you were entitled to get money back. Now, we don't get all that we put back in. I mean, if that's the case, we'd all be millionaires when we get to our 70s. But that's how the term came about in my best thinking. And I think it has been, how can I say this? Well, I'll say it. I think the term has been bastardized over the years so that it makes it seem like these are people who don't do anything, and why are they getting entitled to anything at all? But, your point is well taken about its future, because we just don't know. I mean, the Social Security Trust Fund has been running out of money for a while. It's always been looked at as a program that the government could and should cut and do away with it. I feel bad for young people who are just starting to pay into that system, unless we guarantee that there's going to be a reasonable way that they will draw down, like so many of us have. But in terms of entitlement, yeah, we're entitled to it, just like you're entitled to Medicaid, Medicare. And I just would ask that you not allow other people who want to define what the word means to suggest that it is somehow not important, not noteworthy, or it's for those people who don't do anything. And Attorney General, I don't know if you've got any background or expertise on this, if you'd want to weigh in, or you and Mr. Kelley, by all
Yeah,
means.
and I wouldn't say background or expertise, but there certainly have been many proposals. None of them are easy. All of them require, sort of compromise and balancing competing interests to ensure the solvency of Social Security. I mean, there have been ideas about, right now, if you go above a certain income level, you no longer contribute from that income above that certain level to Social Security. Some have said, look, over a certain amount, and whatever that amount is, you can negotiate. Maybe over $300,000, you start resuming a smaller percentage to Social Security. There have been proposals that, and I know it's controversial, but these are difficult decisions that have to be made. But whether or not someone who is retiring and has a lot of wealth that has been acquired over the course of their life, who may not be as reliant on Social Security, maybe we ought to consider focusing Social Security benefits on those who have been laboring their entire lives, perhaps at or barely above minimum wage, and where Social Security is going to be a larger percentage of their retirement income. So there are a lot of different ideas, and we just have to sort of, there's a logjam right now in the discussion. But what you can't do, there are a lot of things that you can't do, right? Which I think would be non-negotiable. You can't privatize Social Security or Medicare, because that's the first step in eliminating them. First, you privatize it, and you say, hey, it's budget neutral, and then every year you reduce the size of that program. And I think President Kelley would probably agree with me on that one. So those are some thoughts that I had, Congressman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mr. Kelley?
It's not much for me to add, except for, each person that pays into Social Security are entitled to a portion of that back. It was originated in the early 30s, and it's been amended a few times, but anyone that pays in and meets the requirements of that act, are entitled to Social Security. And I'm one that advocates for it every single day, because I think that, it's something that is owed to the Americans who pay into the system, and we have to make sure that we maintain that ability to receive those benefits, especially for elders that have worked all of their lives and given, to this country. Then I think that it's only right that they get that back.
Yeah, and Sally, one other quick thing, and then we'll move on. Remember, Social Security does a number of things, not the least of which is health insurance, but also disability insurance. There are a lot of people in our society who work and get disabled and are unable to take care of themselves, and that's another function of Social Security as we know it. The more controversial stuff, you'll hear about that because it's starting to make its way around. Every couple of years, people say, let's raise the retirement age so that we can make sure that solvency is there in the Social Security Trust Fund. There's a yin and a yang, but some people say yes, others say no. I mean, right now at 62, you can make your first draw on Social Security. And then, as you go up in age, every year or 2 years, the amount reduces. I mean, they're using actuarial tables based on how much is in the Social Security Trust Fund and how long is person A, B, or C expected to live. So I'm going to leave it. Sorry, I'm not an expert on that, but I hope, Sally, that as you said, Attorney General Brown gave you some sense of relief. I hope there was some little bit of relief in this discussion on your subject matter. Social Security. Okay, we're ready for the next person.
Thank you so much, Congressman. Once again, folks, please remember, if you would like to ask a question, that's *3 on your telephone keypad. And if you're enjoying this update, I encourage you to press *6 on your telephone keypad now to sign up for the Congressman's e-newsletter. Congressman, next question submitted online, please, sir, from Martha of Lake Walker. Martha asks, how many Maryland nonprofits, local governments, universities, etc., were damaged by Trump's payment freeze? How much damage has been done, and has it been tracked, sir?
Well, I don't know that it's been tracked because it's ongoing. If you look at USAID as just one example and one agency, which has been totally pretty much obliterated now, and close to 10,000 people or so no longer employed, and all overseas operations suspended. It's hard to track what the total economic impact is as we speak, because it's growing and growing and growing. I mean, we've got millions of dollars worth of food sitting on ships and sitting in docks around the world that U.S. farmers are looking to be paid for. They grew this food. They participated in the USAID food program. It's been shipped around to a lot of countries that are really in a bad way right now. But with this freeze, it's just sitting there rotting. So it's giving an example of how that dollar amount is increasing over and over again. In this case, poor farmers. I don't know how, in fact, they recoup and recover from something like this. The other part of your question was how many agencies? I don't know. I mean, I'm not being facetious when I say this, but every day I wait to see what they're trying to eliminate next. And most of those are national organizations with headquarters here. You may recall Lutheran Services, which has its headquarters here, pretty much decimated. I met with Global Refuge, which is another organization, in my office yesterday. I met with Lutheran Services. I'm meeting with, where I did meet with people from USAID. We know some of the obvious things like the Social Security Administration, the IRS, Medicaid, the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare. I don't know that there is a tally. That's why I said this is so destructive. And maybe one of the things I didn't say at the beginning of this is, while we think that this is a disorganized effort, I'd have to tell you this is a very, very organized effort. It's something called deliberate chaos. You know, in the Army, they've got a term for it called shock and awe. So when you're trying to disable or destroy the enemy, instead of dropping one bomb, you drop 100 at the same time. And people are so dismayed, disillusioned, shocked, and running around. It makes it difficult to organize and difficult for victims to get together. And so the head count, in this case, the agency count, continues to go upwards. I have relied, quite frankly, on many of our reporters in the Central Maryland area who've done a great job at trying to chronicle the effects cumulatively up to a certain date, as they periodically report on what your question was, the damage that's been done to agencies and individuals. And I'm not here to promote any one news outlet, but I do have to say there have been a number of real good reporters that have been trying to define that for us. And I would encourage you to keep reading on this, or if you'd like, I've got my entire staff on this call tonight. And Martha, we can get back to you and stay in touch with you regularly, and in hopes that that number would go down. But I think that for a while it's going to continue to go up. So Ray, or whoever is in the control room now, please make sure that you get a number on Martha so that we can follow up.
Thank you so much, Congressman.
By the way,
if I could jump.
I just got information that there are 9,800 people on this teletown hall, which is great. Absolutely wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir.
Next up.
Yes, we're going to take a question from Nicole of Baltimore. Nicole, you are live on the call with the Congressman. Please go ahead and ask your question, Nicole.
Hello. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good. Well, first, I want to just thank you all for having this. This is really amazing. I never done this before, so I'm new to this. And so my question is, I am a federal worker, and I am worried. I'm worried and I'm scared about what's going on. And if I do have a job tomorrow, actually, I'm coming home from my job now because I'm dedicated to the United States and the Constitution. But what should I do if I end up being fired from my position?
Well, I'm going to directly yield to President Kelley on this since he is the national president of the American Federation of Government Employees. And then both Attorney General Brown and myself, if we've got something that we can add to that, we will do that. President Kelley?
Okay. Thank you so much. Sister, first of all, let me say thank you for being a federal employee. I appreciate the work that you do, and I know that, those on this call appreciate the work that you do. But in the event that you are fired for any reason whatsoever, always know to go to your union. That is the level of recognition. Or if you have a council, I don't know which department you work in, but if there is a council, you go to the council, and they in turn will get with us, and we're going to litigate any firing that is unlawful. Please know that. But you start at the level of recognition, which is the local union office, and then it comes up to us, and we'll do whatever we need to do to ensure that your rights are protected.
And if I can jump in and pick up on that, Congressman, how important it is, as President Kelley said, to make sure you're touching base with your union. The federal government has a lot of requirements when it comes to laying off federal government employees, not only the rights that have to be extended to the employees, and we see this administration is violating those rights. They also have rights and they also have responsibilities in terms of notifications to states and others. And when they don't do that, then that may be an opportunity for states to look at what actions we can take to protect federal workers. And there are certain things that trigger our or make possible a state standing. You heard Congressman Mfume use that word earlier, standing meaning our opportunity, our ability to go to court to defend the rights, the interests of Maryland workers. So, and we are in close touch with AFGE and other unions that represent federal government workers so that we can be part of the effort to protect federal workers. With that, Congressman Mfume, I'm going to need to jump. I do have another engagement. I want to thank you for your leadership. Thank you for inviting me. I want to thank actually the constituents of Congressional District 7 for electing Congressman Mfume to represent us in the House of Representatives. He's doing a great job, someone who I enjoy partnering with, and I look forward to continue doing that, Congressman Mfume. And take care, President Kelley.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Attorney General Brown, for your kind and clearly overly gracious remarks. I really appreciate that. And I said before, I appreciate you and the way you've gone about your task here in the state, particularly in this time when lawsuits are the one thing that we have been able to turn to slow down the foolishness of Donald Trump and Elon Musk. We're going to move right ahead. So if you could bring the next caller in, that would be great.
Yes, sir. Just want to remind our listeners, if you've got a question this evening, please press *3 on your telephone keypad. We're going to take our next call. It's from Donna of Baltimore. Donna, you are live on the call with the Congressman. Please go ahead and ask your question, Donna.
Good evening. My question is, well, first of all, I would like to say thank you, Congressman Mfume, and thank you, President. And thank you, Attorney General. I really appreciate the fact that you all are out there really fighting this pervasive evil. I agree with you, Congressman. It is a pervasive evil that has not just suddenly come, but has been artfully planned to be executed. My question is, how do we counteract it? We talk about the constitutional crisis. The Constitution may have to be amended. It's being amended by lawless people who don't care. And we cannot continue to take the same tactics in dealing with these people who do not have a soul or care about anybody. So how do we collectively come together and allay fears in people, as all the 9,000 people that are on this call tonight are listening and gathering information, share the truth and share this information with others, because it's been very helpful. But how do we continue to come together strong? No Republican, no Democrat, no anybody else other than human beings being impacted by this pervasive evil. How do we come together to fight it? We're going to have to stand strong, yes. We're going to have to stand strong, but we're going to have to understand what we're dealing with. When you have a person that has designated himself a ruler and changing rules to suit his fancy, how do we collectively come together to combat that? This is like nothing else, nothing we have ever seen. Nothing.
I could not agree with you more, Donna. And it's like nothing we thought we would ever see either. You know, it's one of those things that really will be referred to, if we still have a country, 100 years from now, as a great turning point, a great challenge for the United States and for the people of the United States. I've said repeatedly that this really is not a Democratic, Republican, or independent issue. This is an American issue affecting Americans. And the question about how do we come together is one that I think is best demonstrated by what we're doing tonight. We have to find a way to provide forums and vehicles for expression and discussion. We've got to listen to all of the ideas that people have. Many of those ideas are coming from different quarters in our society about what can we do by forming this group or forming this resistance or appealing to this court. Fortunately, as we've said several times tonight, the courts, and particularly the federal judges, have really been pumping the brakes on what we've seen. We need a full stop, though. We don't need to slow it down. We really just have to find a way to cause the foolishness to stop so that we can get back to some semblance of governance. But it's very important that we recognize that leadership, at least I was taught, always comes from the bottom up, never from the top down. So it is us, those of us on this call and those who could not make it tonight but feel the same way, who've got to continue to believe that when we do believe and work together, those answers will start to come to us, even if they're not so readily available right now. 30 days ago when this started, who would have ever thought that we would be relying on the third branch of government, the court system, to create for us an opportunity to be able to resist? It just goes to show you that as you go further and further into this struggle, answers do appear and things do happen. And without insulting anybody, let me just say and remind myself that God is providential. Things may look one way, but if you believe and work hard to want to turn those around, we can and we will. And we'll do it in forums like this. Believe me, I don't have the answer where Kweisi Mfume has got a bag full of remedies. I'm like all of you. I'm struggling to figure out, what do we do next? How do we say it? How do we involve somebody else? How do we make a difference? How do we measure from this week to next week if we're being successful? I'm just like you in that regard. But I do believe, I said a moment ago, I've seen a whole lot since I first got elected to office, living through Ronald Reagan and everything since then, that this nation has found a way to survive. In this case, we don't have a choice but to find a way, because if we don't, I don't think the nation survives as we know it. I'm going to yield there. Everett, in case you want to weigh in on this, by all means, do so.
I think you said basically all that can be said in this instance. Congressman, and I echo those sentiments. We have to stand, and we got to trust, like you said, we got to trust our God to help deal with this situation. But then I also know that faith without works is dead. There is things that we have to do as well. And I think that this is the beginning of the thing that we have to do. We have to continue to do these town halls. We have to continue to educate people. I'm in Detroit today just to rally with people here in Detroit. We got to constantly do this around the country. And I know that my union is doing these events in every state, and we're asking them to do them in every state because we have federal employees in every state. And people are catching on. People are feeling this. They're feeling that if they don't step up now, then it's going to be too late. And so more and more people are stepping up to the plate and trying to educate the communities on what's happening to America.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to again say thanks to the 9,800 people who are with us tonight. I mean, it's a good sized meeting, and we can find a way to continue these efforts. We're going to continue to reach a lot of people. Information is power. And one of the things that we believe in doing is trying to find a way to provide information while we all fight and push back and resist the foolishness that we have been living with. Okay, let's go to another caller. We've got it looks like about 38 minutes left. We still got time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We actually have an online question from Jalen of Windsor Hills. Jalen asks, what are you doing to protect historically Black colleges and universities from the president's anti-DEI crusade? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it's a good question. I serve on the board of Historically Black College and University, which is Morgan State University. I've been on that board, I hate to say it, but it's out of my love for the university since 1988. So I think this is my 36th, 37th year. And for the last 14 years, I've been the chairman of the Board of Regents of Morgan. So I kind of understand and know the struggle of HBCUs. I've lived it all my life. I recognize the uniqueness of it. I've argued to people over and over again that we cannot allow that uniqueness to go away from America, that they have a place and that they provide a service, not to mention the fact that they provide a number of different people who are in disciplines making a difference. What we have done here is pretty much said to this administration, as we have said to every administration. It goes back to that old Revolutionary War slogan, don't tread on me, with the snake on the ground. Don't tread on us, please, because you will get pushed back and you will have a fight that you really probably don't want to have right now. And so we've been very successful. When I say we, I'm talking about over 125 historically Black colleges and universities around the country to insulate our existence in many ways by making sure that we are very, very active in reaching out, telling our story, engaging our alumni across the country, and showing proof positive of why we are successful. When I got to the Congress years ago, you would make the argument that we don't need a historically Black college and university because this is America and things have changed. Kweisi Mfume, when you came up, it's different. Anybody can go to any school now. Okay, that was the argument up until last summer when the Supreme Court ruled pretty much the end of affirmative action in education based on the case that came out of Harvard. So what was a salient argument by some people on the other side of the aisle to me about why I should not be concerned about the existence of these schools? This is what I said earlier, in the blink of an eye, it can go away. And so that Supreme Court ruling, which did away with affirmative action in higher education, says that we've got to be eternally vigilant. One other quick thing, and I will go to the next question. People will argue, what's the need? And why have a Black college or a university? Not what are they doing, but why have one to begin with? And logic taught me over the years as a young student and later as an old senior citizen that it's okay in this country to have a Harvard and a Yale that remain essentially WASP, even though others may attend. That's not considered inconsistent. Nobody asks, why do we need a Harvard or a Yale? It's okay in this country to have a Brandeis and a yeshiva that remains essentially Jewish, even though others may attend. That's not considered consistent. And I believe that logic would also point out that it's okay also to have a Catholic U and a Notre Dame that remain essentially Catholic, even though others may attend. So that same logic tells me that it's okay to have a Morgan and a Morehouse and a Fisk and a Howard that remain essentially Black, even though others may attend. So we are fighting every day around that logic with this administration, as we've done with every administration now, going back to the emergence of Black colleges and university in 1861, to make sure that we are protecting ourselves and not waiting for others to do it. Sorry to take so long on that one. We can go to the next one now.
Thank you, Congressman. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're on the phone and you would like to ask a question, please press *3 on your telephone keypad now. If you're joining us online, please type your question below the streaming player and your question will be submitted for the queue. You can also press *6 to subscribe to the Congressman's e-newsletter for more updates on topics just like this. All right, our next caller is Monica from Baltimore. Monica, you are live on the call with the Congressman. Please go ahead and ask your question, Monica.
Hi, good evening. Thank
Hi.
you, everyone. Hello. Thank you for hosting this town hall at such a time. We definitely need to be able to express our concerns and our voices. So just want to say thank you. I have two questions. I know that the Department of Doles does not technically exist, but I've been keeping track of what's been going on, and they are reporting that all of what their activities are can be found on doles.gov. And when I went to that quote-unquote website, I found out that it's only on X platform, Elon Musk platform. So what's being done, if anything, can be done to for the American people to be able to see what's going on without having to go through Musk's platform? And then my second question is, what happens if they decide not to fund the government on March 14th? Because it seems like it would be an opportunity for them not to do it just so they could have and gain more control. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Those are good questions. Those are very good questions, and I'm going to take a stab at them and then yield to President Kelley, who's with us. The Doge website is whatever Elon Musk wants it to be. And because I don't trust him to be truthful, or Donald Trump to be truthful, based on what they've done, it was just the president last week that said Russia didn't invade Ukraine. And it's Mr. Musk who said, oh, don't worry, we're not going to hurt anybody in this process. And yet people have been hurt. So I don't know what they have on his site. Even if it were on another platform, I don't know that I would necessarily trust it. Again, I am the ranking member on the Federal Government Operations Committee, and we have been looking at waste, fraud, and abuse. We've identified it in this agency and that agency and ways to scale back and to be more efficient. They don't come to us because they don't want to hear it, quite frankly. And trust me, this is not a Democratic subcommittee. The chairman of the subcommittee, Pete Sessions, is from Texas. I happen to be the ranking member from Maryland. So we work together, and we've been working together for 2.5 years to do the work now that Doge is saying that it's doing. So the information is there. And as I mentioned a moment ago, $841 billion to the Pentagon, an agency that's failed 7 straight annual audits. So if you're really looking for waste, fraud, and abuse, that's where, Mr. Musk, you should start. I haven't seen his website. I just don't believe that I would believe whatever is there. I'd like, again, thank God for the reporters who have taken it upon themselves to search out contradictions and who are continuing to report them. And I bet you there are a bunch of contradictions there. Monica, you also wanted to know what's going to happen on March 14th if the government is not properly funded. It will shut down, and it will shut down slowly, but through the first week of that shutdown, the real effects will be felt. The last 4 government shutdowns in this country all took place during a Republican Congress. I'm not saying that because I'm a Democrat and I don't like Republicans. I'm just saying it because it's a fact. And why it's a fact blows my mind. I just don't understand that. But the last 4. So if this one happens on March 14th, it will be, I think, the 5th one. And you'll see basic services shutting down. U.S. parks will start to close. There will be an effort by the Congress and the president to mandate persons in essential roles come to work, even though they won't get paid. Our military may or may not get paid, but because they are considered essential and they answer to the commander in chief, they will continue to do what they do. But God help us with the IRS, with Social Security disability claims, with the TSA, and the fact right now that a lot of people believe our aviation effort is failing in this country because we've been cutting back and cutting back and cutting back. Medical research that has not already stopped will come to a real stop then, particularly if it's government funded, like some of these clinical trials that are taking place. And you will see a number of workers who up to that point had not been let go, be let go. Others will choose to come to work and not be paid, hoping that the budget would be funded. Now, I forget the longest shutdown here, but I think it was something maybe like 39 days or so. I wasn't in Congress for that one. Those are some of the things that are going to happen right away. Our debtors around the world are going to wonder when they're going to get paid. And it just creates a situation in the world's richest, strongest, most powerful nation where we look like we can't handle our own business, and where partisan politics, sometimes on the Democratic side, sometimes on the Republican side, whenever we let partisan politics rule the day, we're not going to have any answers. It's going to take us a long time to work through it. So we're hoping that doesn't happen. As I said earlier in the call, the budget resolution was passed 2 days ago. It passed by 2 votes. That's the resolution that structures the House. You know, you have a wall here, you'll have some windows there, a second floor, third floor. The issue becomes the furniture. And the furniture are things like Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. I could go on and on and on. If you build a small house, you can't get those things in. And so you cut. And that's what we're going to see, cuts being forced because you have to comply with a budget resolution, which has been passed, that said you can't exceed this and you can't exceed that. I feel like all I'm doing is painting doom and gloom tonight. So I'm going to stop. These are very good questions. Actually, to be honest, I like talking about stuff like this. I wouldn't do what I do if I didn't, because that's the way I learned, you know, listening, learning about government and civics, asking questions, and organizing in communities. These are dire times, so all those efforts for us have to be a lot better. We can go to the next one. And President Kelley, I'm going to give this one to you, and I'll chime in after you. Go right ahead.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay.
So our next caller is Pamela from Baltimore. Pamela, you're live on the call. Please go ahead and ask your question, Pamela.
It's my husband, Charles, so go ahead.
I'd like to ask, there's an announcement that Trump has tried to get rid of the leader of the Office of Special Counsel, an agency that protects whistleblowers, and the ramifications that such an action, it appears to be selective termination for the protection of federal employees. I should say that would endanger federal employees. I'm wondering if we cannot sue the government and they manage to take out our means of legal protection, what other options do we have? And if layoffs are taking place, how is this going to affect the unemployment benefits that are currently in place?
Okay, well, Pam and Charles, I'm
right
going
ahead.
to yield to President Kelley, and then I'll come in behind him.
Well, let me say first of all that we are hopeful. There is a lawsuit pending right now for the Trump administration firing the inspector generals and the Office of Special Counsel that is there to protect America from waste, fraud, and abuse, and the American people and American workers. And so far, that seemed to be turning around, not in the administration's favor, and we're going to continue from where I sit to fight these battles, but we gotta, and I know it seems like I'm saying the same thing over and over and over, but we're going to have to continue to do things like we're doing tonight, and it's going to have to be the people that rise up, against this injustice, because that's exactly what it is. It's the people, because that's where the power of this country really is. It's in the people of this country. And so the more we can educate the people and the people begin to rise up, the more effects we're going to have when it comes to really destroying this ring of this administration that is directly against the American people, because that's exactly what I say, is directly against the American people, because the American people are feeling it. And when you start thinking about what's going to happen if the inevitable happen, if we end up in a government shutdown, it's going to devastate America. You think about it. Now, the last shutdown was under this administration. It was 35 days, and it was not a full government shutdown. It was a partial government shutdown, and those 35 days cost this economy $11 billion, okay, in 35 days. So what do you think going to happen? America going to come to a screeching halt, in no time with a full government shutdown, okay?
Charles and Pamela, let me kind of add into that and make sure I understood the question. The Office of Special Counsel is in the bullseye of Donald Trump. And so it's really not a rumor. They want to do away with that, because, they don't want those eyes on things. And so that, unfortunately, is more than a rumor. And I think as time goes by, we'll see within the next couple of weeks why it's not a rumor. I think they're going to move as quickly as they can. President Kelley talked about the fact that the inspector generals, I think there are 13 of them that got fired the day that this DOGE effort took place. Those inspector generals are the ones that we rely on to look at fraud, to look at waste, to look at abuse, to bring legal charges. They have a great deal of power. They are our enforcers. And as the ranking member of the Committee on Federal Government Operations, I've worked closely with those men and women. They do their job, not in a partisan way. They get up every day. They believe in the country that they serve. And now they've all been fired, except one woman who has decided that the president doesn't have the power to do that. And she has made the court challenge. And now that's one of the amicus briefs that I signed on to. That's what we hope now will be the next, not just temporary restraining order, but we hope that the judge will rule totally in her favor to get those people back in and back on the job. It's just very, very important. And I want to say the worst is yet to come. I don't know if I can say the best is yet to come, but the greatest effort is yet to come. And I'm talking about the effort like this with men and women all across the country, and particularly here in Central Maryland, who just resist. We resist. we don't lie down. We find a way to organize, and we find a way to push back. Next caller, if you would.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next caller is from Joseph. Joseph's calling from Baltimore. Joseph, you are live on the call. Please go ahead and ask your question, Joseph.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for holding this town hall and creating a space for these important conversations. I truly appreciate it. My question is about the rising BGE bills in Maryland. What's being done to stop these increasing costs and protect the Maryland residents from an unfair hike that's putting a strain on our wallets?
Joseph, are you in the greater Baltimore area by any chance?
Yes, I am. East side.
Good. You may have noticed on Monday night, the city council almost unanimously, I guess you don't say that, double entendre or something late, but it was almost unanimous. They passed a resolution with one defecting vote that strongly put the council on record, which has some oversight of BG&E, of calling for a rate rollback to what the rates were on January the 1st, and to do that forthwith until we, meaning the utilities, the elected representatives, the communities, and the customers, can figure out where things are. I thought that what the Public Service Commission did was too much too fast. I thought also that it didn't really allow for due process. Now, they will tell me I'm wrong, but I don't recall hearings on whether or not you're going to get a 40% increase in your electric bill. I think people would have been there to say no. In fact, they would say hell no. So this morning, I held a press conference and I joined on to the efforts of the city council, along with Congressman Johnny Olszewski and Sarah Elfreth, both of whom represent this central Maryland area along with me. I crafted a letter, which I think is rather strong and to the point, also requesting that the Public Service Commission roll back those rates to the January 1st, 2025 level, and that discussions begin right away. I believe if there are discussions, and I know Baltimore Gas and Electric and Constellation and everybody else can tell you why they're needed. That's not for me to debate right now, but I can tell them what it's doing to people, particularly as we are trying to get out of this winter and what it has done. And knowing that there might, in fact, be another rate increase this year. Most people on this call have seen their gas and electric bills not just inch up, but go up dramatically. And you feel helpless because you got to pay your bill. If you don't pay your bill, they cut off your gas and electric. If it's the winter, they give you 6 weeks to make it up. But that's not why any of us try to heat or electrify our homes. We thought we had a good system here, and it wasn't the cheapest system, but we paid our way. So that's where we are right now. And the next effort here is the response from the Public Service Commission, 3 persons who are appointed by the governor who rule on rate increases and that sort of thing. There's going to be resistance. They're not going to roll back, even though we're only talking about rolling back to what it was 8 weeks ago. But we're going to continue to push. I haven't heard an argument to the contrary that makes me think that I should change my position on this. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you, gentlemen. Our next caller is Val from Middle River. Val, you're live on the call. Please go ahead and ask your question, Val.
Okay, thank you. I'm a 25-year veteran. I worked 32 and a half years federal government, still working. I have cancer. I have a son who's waiting for his SSID for about 2.5 years, and I'm scared. Mm-hmm. And I want to know more about, they're trying to make, I work for Social Security, and they're trying to make us to retire or resign, and I don't feel I should have to do that. I love my job. I love helping people, and to me this is not right, and I'm scared to file my taxes because I don't know if it's going to go through.
Mm-hmm. Everett?
And
yeah.
Like I said, I get disability, I get retirement, but like I said, if everything ends March 14th, all that gets wiped away. And I want to retire, but I don't even know if I'm going to get Social Security. So
Let me yield to President Kelley, who represents you and all of the other government workers in this country. Everett?
Yes, sir. Thank you. And once again, I appreciate the work that you do to provide the vital services to the American people. And I know that the American people appreciate the work that you do. I also know that we are in some uncertain times, but this is the time that we have to stand up and push back. This is the time we got to stand up and not allow anyone to force us away from the job that we love so much. We're going to have to stay here. We're going to stand together, and we're going to have to fight, because this is where the power of this country lies. It's in the people of this country. And AFGE is going to stand right there with you. We're going to litigate everything we need to litigate, to make sure that your rights are protected. So I encourage you, don't allow anyone to push you out of the federal services. If we end up in a government shutdown, we're going to come back. I know it's going to be a tough situation initially, but we have to hang in there. We got to stand there, and if we stand there and we stand together in solidarity, ultimately we win, and that's all I'm saying. I would not take a defeatist attitude in this situation myself personally. I'm going to fight it every step of the way, because I believe that if the federal employees stand together, we will ultimately win this battle. Well, actually, this war.
Yeah, Val, before you go, Val, I could hear in your voice just how afraid you are. I mean, I feel that. I feel it. And I'm going to say a couple of things. Number one, Crystal Washington, who is a staff member of mine, is on this call, and I'm going to ask Crystal if she would reach out to you first thing tomorrow, if not tonight, so that we can stay in touch in my office, working with you to try to do a number of things. The first of which is to thank you for your service as a veteran and the fact that you put on a uniform prepared to defend the country that you love. I'm sorry to hear about your cancer. And there are many people who are listening tonight who are cancer survivors, and many others who have lost family members, as we all have, to that disease. And so trust me when I tell you, there are people who understand your situation and are afraid with you. The fact that you're trying to get SSI benefits, and I think you said for your son, is important. And I would urge you not to resign. I don't care what they say. I've said this over and over again when these crazy emails came out saying, resign and we'll pay you through September 30th. If anybody believes that, I will sell them a rocket that can go from here to the moon. That's just not the case. And if it doesn't happen, what are we going to say? Because by then you've resigned. So don't resign, number one. I want to help you. I want to work with you, and I want to work with others on this call who just heard me give the name of a staff member in my office to call. Please, let's, Val, kind of figure out how we get through this together, and how we assure you that your service to this country was not in vain. And Crystal, you can hear me even though you can't speak back right now. Let's do this, and let's reach out first thing on Monday to make it happen. We're going to go to another caller, but I was thinking about something as I've been listening tonight that keeps ringing in my ear. And it's the words of Hubert Humphrey from 1968 when he ran for president and lost. Hubert Humphrey said, and it bears repeating, particularly at times like this, that the moral test of a government is how the government treats those in the dawn of life, the children, how the government treats those who are in the twilight of their life, the elderly, and how it treats those in the shadows of their life, the sick, the needy, and the handicapped. We would be failing on all those counts if we enacted a society that Elon Musk and Donald Trump would have us believe is the best thing for America. We're bigger than that. We're better than that. And we together, whether we're Black, white, Latino, Asian, uptown, downtown, rural, or urban, have to believe that it's really important to push back now. This might be our last chance to push back over these next months. And I'm just so happy that the court has found a way to interject itself. And I pray to God that that will continue to reverse a lot of this. And we're going to stay on that case to make sure it happens. Okay. So we can go to the next call. I get like you.
Thank you, John.
Many of you. We never thought we'd see this in our life.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, please, if you would like to, if this is resonating with you and you would like more information, you want to stay up to date with the congressman's, with the congressman's goings on and the information he wants to share and needs to share with you, please press *6 on your telephone keypad now to subscribe to the congressman's e-newsletter. Our next caller is Crystal from Bowie. Crystal, you are live on the call. Please go ahead and ask your question, Crystal.
I'm
Crystal,
sorry.
you're live
Thank you.
Please go ahead, hon.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was getting back to my question. Thank you, Congressman Mfume, President Kelley, and Attorney General Anthony Brown. My question is, will employees be brought back to work after this, after things go to court, if they lose their jobs? And again, I want to say what attorneys is working on the federal employees' behalf. I know someone mentioned something earlier, but I guess I want to know, is there some type of class action that employees can get together and file together? And one other note I want to say, if employees lose their jobs, are there any types of food banks that employees can go to feed their families or get some type of assistance if they want to use additional money to help pay some bills? And I think it's important for you to continue having communication like this with everyone so that people will stay connected. And as I'm always taught, to always send God's word and it will not come back void.
Yes. President Kelley.
Okay, first of all, thank you again for being a federal employee, Crystal. Now, we do have on our webpage a toolkit that gives you a lot of information. I would suggest that you go there. We also have grants through an organization called FIA to assist our members, in the event of, natural disaster or loss of jobs and those types of things. They give grants. But we're also able to, FIA is also able to show in each state where other resources are available for residents as well. So I encourage you to go there. I encourage you to look at the website because you're going to gain a lot of information. You're going to see the lawsuits that have been filed. We have a general counsel's office itself that's working with so many community organizations, so many civic organizations to file these lawsuits. We are working with hopefully a group of attorneys that's going to file some class action type suits. So I encourage you to go to the website and get that information so that you can have that and understand all the things that is being done on your behalf.
Crystal, I don't know that I have a lot more to add to that, except that you had some very good questions that I had not even thought about. The what if this happens, what do we do? But I want you to trust and believe that Everett Kelley, as the national president of the American Federation of Government Employees, has dealt with those questions and thought them out long before me. And when he directs you like that to the site to get answers, you should take advantage of that. But you should also, if you have questions, call him up or call us up at your office. We will reach out as well. Just very good questions. I don't know where we are, but I think if nobody complains, I'll try to take another call. I know we're right at the end of our time slot here.
Yes, sir, absolutely. We have time for one more question. We've got a question from Dalton of Baltimore. Dalton, you are live on the call with the Congressman. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, thank you so much for doing this. My question, and I feel like you've kind of gone over this a little bit, but if you'd just sort of like to give a summary on what we as regular citizens can do to help support you in leadership positions in Congress and Senate and our representatives, what we can do to help support you.
Yeah, Dalton, thank you. And I'm going to answer this in a non-political way. In other words, I'm not going to ask anybody who wants to support me to go out and pass out literature and tell people why they need to elect me. They'll either elect me or defeat me based on what I do. That's the way I've always run for office, what I believe in. I think we're measured by what we do at the end of the day. But what they can do to support the overall effort is to make sure that they, meaning everybody you're talking to in this universe, talk to other people. We've got to just get belief back into the masses of people that power comes from the bottom up, not from the top down. And to the extent that people who are listening can call a member of Congress, even if you're not in the district, they need to hear it, particularly those who are fighting us on this, many of whom unfortunately happen to be of the president's party. That would be very helpful. I had mentioned earlier that there were a number of organizations that I wanted to thank. So I'm going to go back through that group and suggest to you, as I try to answer your question, that working with any of these organizations helps me in many respects. I thank the people from Move On, the people from Individual, the American Civil Liberties Union, the National Treasury Employment Union, obviously the American Federation of Government Employees, the NAACP, and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, the Committee for Lawyers and Civil Rights, the Leadership Conference of Civil Rights, Democracy Now!, Democracy Forward, and any organization that I might not have mentioned. When you support them, trust me, you're supporting my efforts in this regard and the efforts of a lot of other people around the country. And one of the things I'm finding is that members of Congress, we are collectively doing this in hopes of creating a better situation for our success here. I've always said to people that we're not going to always get along. This country is made up of its diversity deliberately after many, many years of struggle. That's how we entered the era of civil rights. And that America is not a blanket, one color, one texture, one size. We are more like a quilt, different colors, different pieces, different patches, all woven together by a single thread of democracy. It is that democracy that we are fighting for now. And it is that democracy that we, in fact, must save and preserve as we know it going into the future. So thank you very much. And my thanks to everybody for giving me some of your time on this Friday evening. They think you just get something out of this. I get a lot more out of it because I'm interacting live with people who just are trying to share, in many respects, their curiosity, their pain, but most of all, their hope. And I promise you we'll do this again and we'll use the same way to promote it. And maybe we'll go from 9,800 to 20,000, but we're going to do it regularly. Please call my office, 410-685-9199 in Baltimore. The Washington office is 202-225-4741. My entire staff is on this call, so all you have to do is say I was on the town hall, and they will remember the references and the discussion. We want to try to help anybody we can, wherever we can, and we want to help each other by believing that we can do this. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I guess at this point I yield back to the moderator. I don't know, but it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Congressman, and thank you, everyone, for joining the Maryland 7th Congressional District Telephone Town Hall hosted by Congressman Mfume. It has been an interactive 2 hours where I can say personally I learned a lot. I encourage you to follow Congressman on the social media platforms found on his congressional website, mfume.house.gov. That's mfume.house.gov. I thank you, Congressman, and thank everyone for allowing me to be part of this evening. Good night. God bless.